Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Newsround for Anfield Index. It's all just a bit shite at the moment, isn't it? It was a terrible weekend, a 3-0 defeat against Nottingham Forest, against Sean Dyche's Nottingham Forest. Abject on pretty much every level you can name. There's a Champions League game coming up, so maybe we should be excited by that. And then West Ham, isn't it, at the weekend as well. But there is not a lot to be excited about. I'm your host, Dave Davis, coming to you from... It's actually all right in Edinburgh. Probably better than my mood, in all honesty. But fingers crossed, it's quite nice in the world, wherever you are. Now, we start this question every time on Newsround after the week gone and the week ahead with how are we? And we're now at the stage, to be honest, where anything goes. I can understand everything. If you're in the slot out, I'm angry, I've had enough, I get that now. I'm actually getting a little bit frustrated at some of the takes on lines that are belittling that and almost an inverse snobbery for me, as though it isn't a coherent argument. And there's a few in the chat panel already there, James and Steve there, both saying it's not good enough from Liverpool, get Slot out. So I am tired of that inverse snobbery a little bit. Dependent on your appetite, and you will all be different, importantly, and you've got to say this, there is now a coherent argument for Liverpool looking seriously at the future of Arne Slot. If you look at the form table, Liverpool have won one out their last 7 games and lost 6. In fact, if you look at the form table in that period, the only team that are worse are Wolves. Literally, that's it. The only worst team in the Premier League. And they've got 2 points all season. So in our last 7 games, we've won 1. There's a few put in there, yes, 17 losses in 2025. And some of you... and I'll be honest where I am, lay my cards on the table. He's not got long for me. He's got to get it sorted quickly. And I think if there's no real sign of improvement by Christmas time, I think a decision really needs to be made. And we know what that is. But I am getting tired of this argument that you can't say Slot out or it's all sort of play into the masses or things like that. I've got no appetite for it. But I'm not impressed at all by what we're seeing at the moment. And Kathy there saying Slot keeps doing the same things time after time and expecting us to win when we've already lost with the same formula. That was what we saw, wasn't it, on Saturday? That for the first sort of 25 minutes, half an hour, we were okay, to be fair. Let's be factual. We were okay. And then the goal goes in and it went to pieces. And you knew what was coming. You knew exactly what was coming. You knew there'd be a weak set piece almost when they gave away that stupid corner. You thought, here it comes. And it was. You knew they would crumble like a deck of cards. You knew they would. And you knew what the subs were. You knew he was going to bring Gravenberg, everything he'd do, just throw on attackers. People, we've seen this movie before, haven't we? We've seen it multiple times on repeat this season. And we weren't really looking forward to it at all. And if you weren't looking forward to certain things, you might have to do it peeking behind your eyes a little bit. But look at this. I mean, how bad's this Premier League table? You actually have to scroll right down to find us in 11th place, having literally won and lost half our games. I mean, Liverpool, after 12 games, are on a goal difference of -2. That is how bad it is. And in fact, for this, when you're thinking of Champions League, which is the absolute minimum that we're expecting this season, let's not dress it up. We're now 3 points off Villa for that spot. I would suggest things are pretty bad across the board. And do you know what? You can call me a megalomaniac for this. I don't really give a shit, to be honest. But I actually tweeted this yesterday, so I do want to show it you to sort of summarise my feelings there. We've only got 1 more point than Wolves in the last 7. That's just a fact. Whatever you think, either way for Slot, it's ignoring the obvious, just say, get behind the manager and support the team is the answer. The question of his future is a valid one. Because it goes without saying, I was at the stadium on Saturday and you could sense the apprehension early doors. And probably the biggest charge I can level right now in terms of the feeling is Jurgen had that, the doubters to believers and how he wanted to change that. When the first goal comes or goes in, doubt, you could sense it across the board, even at, when it goes to 2-0. Was the belief in that stadium? Absolutely not. Not a hope in hell. We'll get to some of the decisions as well. But in terms of how are we, I'm guessing there's a lot of emotions going there. In terms of what might actually happen, just a few updates. Fabrizio Romano there did put out on his YouTube last night. So the highlights, Liverpool are not looking at changing their manager, but for sure, they want to see better performances and results from Arne Slot and the players. Slot has the backing and the support of the club. Should really be there for now. And that is important to say because it's been a long time since Liverpool, pulled the trigger on a manager. Brendan Rodgers about a decade ago. Do you remember that when Carragher, Henry, the hand on the knee, after that Everton draw? Was about a decade ago, wasn't it, when Jurgen first walked in? Mental to think, but that's the last time they did it. However, a key thing to go back to on them, it wasn't just like, oh, right, we best sack Brendan and then we knew. It all came out, didn't it? The secret meetings in New York and all the different things. So it is absolutely possible that Liverpool are well speaking to people in the background as well. And Indy had this last night at the same time. So this was put out that the information below, trusted source, Slot has to New Year's. Currently, he's got the full backing of the club owners, which is pretty significant. The owners are standing by him and are willing to give him until the new year to turn things around. To be honest, a little bit, that is where I am right now. That I do want to give him right till Christmas or just to the breakup there and see. However, I think, as per that tweet and everyone's feeling, there's got to be improvement and they've got to be rapid. There just isn't any excuses at all for what's to come. Now, the captain was talking after the game, and I'm trying to think, if I'm being honest, who would you genuinely give pass marks from Saturday to? To Bosley, maybe? Struggling to give anyone pass marks. But the skipper was quite honest after the game, saying you have to be a man and face the toughness and go again and again, because if you want to give up, you are at the wrong place. The club has gone through much adversity over the years, and we've always come out of it. But it doesn't mean it's easy. It's tiring, but there is no other way. What am I going to do? Go home and cry? No, I'm going to go home and try to think how we can turn this around. And hopefully that is what everyone is doing as well. Now, a few journalists reported this, that he was quite, as they put it, loud with his comments in the mix zone, making sure his teammates could hear. And that's fine. That's all well and good. But do you remember the Benitez era? He was quite honest about this, Rafa, the way you do it, where if the players were short on anything and not showing enough, he'd always have Argentinian players, as he said, in the squad, just to start and engineer little things as well when it wasn't going well enough. It's not going to have happened, but I genuinely wouldn't have minded if, having heard there was fist thrown or something, or having a right go at each other in the changing room on Saturday. And the reason I'm saying that is you can play poorly, you can get beat. That happens. That can happen to any team at all. But what I can't accept from Saturday, players shitting out of 50-50s. I can't think of another way of putting it. Absolute pussies at times. Genuinely. We saw it with Ryan Gravenberch and Cody Gakpo twice. So if Virgil is having words with anyone, I'd like to think he was getting right into his Dutch teammates, because you can lose You do sometimes get outplayed, and that happens. Yeah, this was completely different. This was getting not even outfought, bullied. We got bullied by the Sean Dyche's team, and the word I can't escape from, and I don't like saying it, but I can't think of another one. We look weak, afraid almost at times. Yeah, genuinely, you could hear it in the stand where I was when Gakpo did it twice and Gravenberch. People were going mad. You can't be shitting out at 50-50s when we're in the well, at any time, but you know the situation we're in. It said so much for me. That has got to change, and got to change quickly. So as much as the skipper's saying things, he should be getting right into some of his Dutch teammates at the same time. And he also said this after the game. He said, at the moment, it's a mess. That is a fact. We are losing battles and everyone is responsible for it. And I hope everyone sees that. You should be angry. The main thing for me is that everyone has to take responsibility. In terms of letting him, as in the manager, down, we are definitely letting him down, but we have let ourselves down as well. Collective failing. You can point your finger and say it was this player, as people are starting to do. By the way, you're all right. There was, did the manager get things wrong? Christ, yes, 1,000,001 things wrong on Saturday. Were most of the players poor? Absolutely. Yeah, you can point your finger at pretty much all the players. Maybe, and again, you're splitting hairs. What's really expected of Rion Gamora, a young 17-year-old kid, when you bring him in at that stage? I'm not going to point your fingers at him naturally, but who really did anything? Again, that question. Who got pass marks on Saturday? That's the question to ask. I mean, in terms of this one, some of the decisions, and it relates back to Arne Slot, but, the performance of Alexander Isak, a lot labelled him as anonymous on Saturday. The biggest worry around this right now for me is Liverpool do not know how to play, it seems, with a number 9 like Alexander Isak. And before people start jumping in and saying, no, we had number 9s, well, let's be honest. Most of last season, it was Diaz as the false 9 in the middle with Gakpo left and Salah right. That's where you got most of the joy. If you got the subs off the bench like a Nunes, didn't really get too many minutes, did he? And it was more about quite often the 9 dropping deeper. Liverpool didn't play sort of with an out-and-out number 9. And genuinely on Saturday, and I'm not blaming Alexander Isak, by the way, they just looked lost with him. He didn't seem to know where to go. And we as a team didn't seem to know how to build up to him, get him the ball, create him chances. The whole side just didn't. Arne Slot didn't seem to know how to play with a number 9. And then the thing about Isak, which I still can't escape, Alexander Isak has played, half an hour, I think it is, in the last 4 weeks. Literally didn't play a single minute because he had a booking for Sweden. Out of the last 2 games, he played literally that half an hour and he's been injured. So half an hour in the last 4 weeks. Hugo Ekitike scored that wonder goal for France and has been lively. So why the hell is Alexander Isak starting on Saturday ahead of a fit Hugo Ekitike, who's just done well, probably buzzing it, getting his first goal for France as well? Just made absolutely no sense, did it? So that's the big thing I would say about Isak. I think that was one of Slot's mess-ups completely. And the right back situation, Dominic Szoboszlai has been, by a country mile, and there is really no competition, Liverpool's player of the season. Absolutely brilliant Szoboszlai's been this season. And yet he puts him against right back in this one. And you could see how much you lost from that midfield because Maka was a yard off it, hopeless. Gravenberch, terrible. And as I said, not accepted him pussying out for a few 50-50. It's just not acceptable that at any time. So Szoboszlai should have been in that midfield. It was a silly decision. And also you saw him try and realise it later because Curtis went to right back a bit, didn't he? He moved in when he was just doing all his subs. I just think, I don't know what Joe Gomez as well has to do to get minutes. I genuinely don't know how that works because Canate, and genuinely, there's been a couple of good games this season, but it's been atrocious. And it was absolutely abysmal in this one. Now, yes, he's getting no protection from midfield at all, and we're open. But even the first goal, see the mess him and Szoboszlai make for the corner, and then the set pieces, and it just goes to pieces, doesn't he? You can see it. Just started whacking it long on occasions just to get the ball away from him as well. His confidence, as Eddie mentions there, is absolutely shot. You can see Liverpool keep paying, as it says, for his hesitation. But if Canate in this form is still a pick ahead of Joe Gomez, why the hell did we keep Joe Gomez around in the summer? Genuinely. Joe Gomez is now, if you look at it, if Joe Gomez can't get minutes in the current situation where we've got no right backs at all, because we'll get to that shortly, Canate playing this way, Leone out, and Joe Gomez still can't get minutes, what is the point, honestly? And I feel for Joe Gomez, but he's now moved into that Endo Harvey Elliott territory of almost just being completely ignored by Arne Slot. So, you have to level that charge at Slot. Why couldn't Gomez have played right back, especially against the Forest team? You knew we were going to knock it long. Just be solid at the back there. Keep your best player right now in midfield. Yeah? Ekitike, as we said, ahead of Isa. There's a lot of mistakes that Arne Slot made. Christ. Interestingly, and again, shout out to the GOAT on this. Indy had this, didn't he? Saying, tomorrow's training session, Liverpool's set up to be pretty intense, attackers versus drill. Big news is that Joe Gomez will be teaming up with Virgil van Dijk in the back line for the training session drill. Crucial test, see if they can gel well together ahead of the Champions League clash on Wednesday. If Gomez impresses, it could mean Canate gets dropped from the starting lineup. I don't think anyone would have any issues with that at all, would they? There's absolutely no real defence that you can make for keeping Ibra in the side at the moment. Just can't. But again, do you honestly think, based on what you've seen and the lack of use, that Joe Gomez will come in? Maybe, actually, let me just correct that. Maybe just for the Champions League, but not for West Ham away. Not for West Ham away at all, but we will see. In terms of other little bits of news, which is just important to call out, say this is just that reports that Liverpool set to sell Star, as in Canate, if he doesn't sign a new contract. What are we going to sell him for? We've got 6 months left to go on his deal. What would honestly be worth in the marketplace right now as well? Yeah. Anyway, we'll see on that. And I've not been down on this transfer. That would be too far. I've always said, like, Liverpool have got more pressing issues than Antoine Semenyo right now in terms of at the back, the build-up, other things to work out. But I've been seeing Cody Gakpo, as I said, just shit out at 50-50s and get into good positions and do nothing. It's not a priority still for me, but honestly, the more and more I see, I kind of coming round to this a bit. And Fabrizio went hard on it yesterday again, didn't he? Saying they are really interested and considering Antoine Semenyo for the January window. They're well informed on the situation, but United, City and Spurs are also interested. Generally, I'm coming round to that more and more, sort of his pace, his physicality, his attributes, the closest you can get to Mane. Yeah. I could see in the chat panel, and the reaction's pretty strong. And Mark there saying, Christmas is decisive for Slot's position. I think certain players suffering more with Jota than we may realise. Mac, Virgil, Gakpo all don't look right. Try to steer away from this conversation a little bit, but it keeps getting mentioned, so I want to go there. It's tragic, and we all still feel it. You know, the players and the reminder, it's all there. What I will say this, and it's not being distasteful, because if you saw my pods on it, I was in bits over it. You know, you still feel it now, and you feel it in your heart as you're talking about it. But the Jota, the 20 minutes, and people talking about that's up to players and the club to decide for me. I don't think that should ever be a fan decision at all. But that, for everything that happened in the summer and the way we're feeling, that doesn't cause players to shit out at 50-50s on Saturday. Does it play into the mentality and everything like that? You saw that this form's been going on for a while, and please, that's not belittling what happened for 1 second. It's an absolute tragedy. We're still feeling it now. But the whole conversation about Arne Slot's future is right to be having. It's a justified conversation. I've not really got the appetite just yet to get rid, but it's getting closer. And if it carries on, I'll be there. In terms of coming up this week as well, again, we keep saying it, but it does for him. It feels like a massive week for everyone. It's the Champions League against PSV, which, being honest, is maybe a good fixture for Liverpool. They're not a particularly physical side. They are an Eredivisie side. You know how that will work. This is massive. West Ham away. It's Liverpool away, and we know what that form's been against West Ham, who are actually now lower than Forest in the table. You've seen their form there on as well. Yeah. And I've seen comments as well saying, oh, well, PSV are in form. Yeah, they are top of the Eredivisie. But you look at their team and our team, and again, it's Anfield, the style they're going to play. There is zero excuses for that. If it's negative results against PSV and a negative result against West Ham, it'll be almost unbearable for Arne Slot and FSG, won't it? In that regard, it really will be. The pressure will just be insane. It might get worse before it gets better. That's the genuine concern right now. Yeah, and the last one I'll pull, because I love, you know me, I do the fan channels. I love the fact that everyone's entitled to a view, but this is nonsense. That's where it says here, so I'll put it up on screen. We have to stop the slot in or slot out debate. At this point, there is no debate. We have to start looking for the next manager. That is nonsense. There's a solid case for getting rid of Arne Slot, but there's also a debate for keeping him and seeing if you can work through it at the same time as well. Anyone who's saying anything different, you will have your opinion on it, but it's nonsense to say you can't argue either way. But if it carries on the way it is, there's one direction of travel. We go into this week. Maybe it's with hope as opposed to expectation. We will see what it brings, ladies and gents. On Monday, the 24th of November, let's hope it turns quickly. That was another news round for Anfield Index.